mind. There's confusion about these friends, but I actually think that they're heroes, and I think that they are our greatest hope for humanity in reversing climate change. So we're not talking about natural, we're not even talking about grass-fed beef here, we're talking about something much, much bigger than that. We're talking about regenerative solar farming. And thank you, Andre Lou, for giving us the photosynthesis equation. But I think it's really important to get this to something that's simple and digestible and easy for people to understand. And so we want to let them know we've got water in the soil, we've got carbon dioxide in the air. Through the power of sunlight, the plant is able to photosynthesize and make a carbohydrate. So carbon from the carbon dioxide, hydrogen from the water, carbohydrate, complex sugars, and the leftovers oxygen. So really, really simple equation. The most important process on the planet, just like Andre said. We want as much of this as possible to happen. And it's also important to note, grasslands do this better than about any other ecosystem on the planet. But with that in mind, is grazing a good thing? It would be kind of intuitive that if you've got an animal that comes in and now bites your grass plant, this could disrupt that cycle. So I want to talk about that for a minute. What's worse? One cow, these are two paddocks exactly the same size, and for all intents and purposes here, completely homogeneous. And so if you had one cow for 100 days, or 100 cows for 1 day, which would be worse? And so I'm going to just take a poll here. I know we've got a pretty bright crowd, but on my right, your left, who says one cow for 100 days is worse?
Worse.
Worse. Okay, a couple of hands here. And who says 100 cows for 1 day is worse? Oh, a couple started and then shot it back down. All right, so keep that in your mind. Let's think about it. Let's go back to our plant here for a second. All right, so we've got our grass plant, we're growing along. It reaches maturity or comes towards the end of its life cycle, and photosynthesis starts to slow or stop. And so now that sunlight that was a benefit a minute ago, now is actually a liability. It starts to chemically oxidize that plant, and we get left over with this mineral skeleton that stays there literally for eons, and that shades out all potential future growth of new grass plants starting, and it also off-gasses CO2 when this happens. So, if we can go back to when the plant is alive, and now we've got a grazing ruminant that comes through and it takes a bite. What do? Our solar collectors are damaged. This is how we get energy from the sun. This is how we feed ourselves. What do we do as we're the plant? So I want to all imagine we're the plant for a minute. What do? Shed our roots. Okay, I heard that. So we pull some of those sugars up in the soil that we've been storing. We've been storing those sugars that we've been making down in the soil, and we pull those up, we convert them to work, and we regrow the plant matter up on top. To do this though, and I heard it, we have to shed some of our roots. Some of our lower roots can no longer be supported, and so we let them die. This is a really, really, really cool thing, because we've now just injected organic matter into the soil. Unlike all other systems in nature where that litter ends up on top of the soil, this process we actually put it down below the soil, deep into the soil, meters deep sometimes. Those roots shed off, and now they feed mycorrhizae and microbes in the soil to then feed them and then propagate more life. So it's a really, really cool thing that happens here. Okay, so then we let those roots grow back, and over time we build resiliency into the system. Okay, so going back to our equation here, what's worse? We've got our 100 days with one cow, and we've got 100 cows for 1 day. In the first scenario, let's kind of game that out there for a second. The cow goes and she grabs her first favorite plant, and she bites her next favorite plant, and then she bites her next favorite plant. And over the course of 3 or 4 days, that first favorite plant has had time to regrow, and she bites again. Now we've broken what we call the law of the second bite. If you think about it, those roots that were sloughed off, that were shortened up, that's our reserves. Those are our energy reserves. They haven't had time to regrow. Even though the leaf blade up top, from our human perspective, is regrown, we think that we've had enough rest for the land to recover. We haven't. We have to have enough time for the roots to fully regrow back. So we've overgrazed that plant by definition. Now it's important to note that in that scenario, we're simultaneously undergrazing. The plants that ruminant doesn't like are not getting grazed or impacted at all. So the most sweetest, most desirable species are slowly getting killed off, while the more savory species are being left and eventually degrade. In the right system there, 100 cows for 1 day, there's competition. So all the cows go in together, or wild ruminants, whatever it be, they're all in there together. I'm going to eat whatever in front of me, otherwise I'm going to miss my meal. And that's where we build in uniformity. We go in, we create a positive catalyst, and then we move on. This is what it looks like to have an undergrazed plant there. You can see a little bit of the yellow. That was growth from this year, that gray oxidized stuff can literally be decades old, and it will stay there forever until it is trampled in or in some ways impacted to create a space for light to reach the soil for new growth to occur. So this is the Jornada Research Station in New Mexico. The top picture there in black and white from the 50s. They were starting to get some shrubs coming in, probably actually from overgrazing, but they decided as a result to that, they were going to go in and exclude all grazing. Rather than changing the management, they were going to exclude it entirely, and this is what it looks like today there. So all the grass has died out, and all that's left now is the shrubs. So we're in an area, we've grown a bunch of grass. This is actually in Zimbabwe, which Precious will be talking about a little bit more. We've grown a bunch of grass. We must have it biologically decay. This is key to nature, and we want to have this happen. In humid areas, places of the world that have humidity pretty much year-round, constant throughout the year, this happens through microbes in the soil and insects. They provide that role for us. In places where it's humid for a season, or you have a rainfall season, and then low humidity, no precipitation for months at a time, the microbes have to go dormant. They have to go into the soil and they either die off or go dormant for that dry season. It's all the areas on this map in the brown. I'm sorry, I know the colors aren't great, but all the brown areas, it's about 2/3 of the world that this falls under where those microbes have to go dormant. These are the areas of the world where you see those large groups of herbivores. Tens of thousands of animals congregating together, moving through the landscapes, and the reason is because that's where nature has this microbial portable pack that they are in essence microbes on wheels. So they go out and they've got their 4 legs, they can get around, they get to water, they get to grass, and they feed in their rumen these huge populations of microbes. The microbes are able to break down grass. The cow is not anymore, or the ruminant is not any more able to do it than we are. They are a mammal, and so they can't break down the cellulose in grass, but those microbes can, and so they have this symbiotic relationship. So those microbes break down that grass, they make it bioavailable for the animal, and they also farm huge populations of microbes. So when that passes to the next chamber of her stomach, it's loaded with this bioavailable grass and huge populations of microbes, which actually become a source of protein for her, and nutrition. And then those microbes pass through her gut. Some of them actually make it through alive, just like we would take a probiotic supplement or eat yogurt or something like that. They pass through her GI tract back out her backside, and you create this feedback loop of positive, beneficial microbes in the soil that then go back into the grazing animals and back into the soil. And it creates this really, really beautiful system of fermentation. So if we want to mimic nature, this is what it looks like. It's wild groups of herbivores always bunched and moving. But what keeps them bunched and moving? I like this example here, and you can see it a little bit here. We're a little bit scrunched. But if you're in a theater and there's one person in a theater and you walk in and you're now the second person, how likely are you to sit right next to that person? Probably not really likely, but you're kind of happy they're there, right? You've got a little bit of comfort to see that they're there, rather than being in the theater by yourself. So now if we open the door, and now as I'm shoving you in, I say somewhere hiding in the shadows is a mountain lion. Now you're probably in their lap, right? And it's the same thing with livestock. We share some social software with them, and they react the same way. So there's this yin and yang of this pressure of like, I don't want to really be too close to my friends, but if there's predator pressure there, I'll be right next to them. And that's how we get that uniformity in that grazing when they're there. So if our livestock systems are going to mimic nature, this is what it looks like. We want to have large groups bunched and moving. The really neat thing, and Andre queued this up, great, thank you so much for that, is this is entirely scalable. It uses tools that we already have in place. We're not telling people to buy more livestock or change what livestock they have or go plant grass or go put in irrigation systems. We're saying use the tools you already have, manage them differently. So it doesn't cost money, it makes money, it doesn't require any technology or infrastructure. It's completely scalable, the size of property that you're working with, and the crucial one here is has the ability to positively impact vast areas of the world that are suitable to little other production other than grazing. But it's so much more than rotational grazing, and I want to make sure that we get that today while we have time. So in holistic planned grazing, we're planning for everything from forage production needs, livestock needs, populations of wildlife, crop production, vacation time, cash flow. All of that gets put on a proactive plan in advance, where you plan everything out at least a year in advance, often 2 or more. And so I'm going to give a really simple example of what that looks like. Let's say we've got animals and we're starting in the top left paddock there. And we need to move them to the next paddock. There again, we're planning this in advance. We know we need to build time in for our family, so we're going to put a family vacation on the map, but we want the animals to go somewhere where they're kind of the easiest to keep. So we put them in this paddock here, and then we know we can't go to this paddock yet because we've got a creek and we've got kind of a forested area there, and there's ground nesting birds at that time of year. So we say, okay, well, we can't go there, but we can go up here because this is our second easiest paddock to keep. It's close to the house. It's also our low cash flow season. Maybe we're going to lay off some labor for a little bit. So we put all that on the map as well. Now those ground nesting birds, their young have grown up, they've moved on, they've migrated to another area, but that's where we have some shade. We're right along the creek there. It'd be perfect for the animals to be comfortable. We've got a meat business, let's say, and we want to finish the best quality meat. This is our best pasture here on the property. We're going to move there so that we get the highest value for our product and have the best quality. And here's the most important part. We never come back to an area until we've had full time for that root recovery to happen as well. And so we want to identify what that is in our growing season and our non-growing season and build that into our plan from the start. So we try to make it so simple that even a child can do it. Precious is going to show some more results pictures. I'm going to zoom through these pretty quick. These are from separate sides of the road. Again, sorry, the color's a little off there. The property there on the left, these are both in Wyoming in the United States, has twice as many animals on it as the property on the right. These are taken on the same day. This is a property in Sonoma County in Northern California. Property on the left actually has zoo animals, zebras and giraffes and all sorts of things. The property on the right has twice as many animal units. It's cattle in this case. It's really a decision-making framework. It deals with the complexity of social, environmental, and economic and putting those all together. It's developed by Savory. If you haven't seen his TED Talk, please be sure to do it. We're taught in Western culture that profit equals quality of life. And I think all of us are in this room for different reasons, but I think one of the reasons we can all agree on is this isn't true. And we've all come to learn that in our own different ways. And so, holistic management, we use quality of life as kind of a primary key indicator. And so, all three pieces in that component are wealth, social, environment. We have to have all of those things satisfied to have the quality of life that we want. We have to acknowledge what things we can change, what things we can't change, and we have to put down our goals and visions for our life. Savory has a great quote that, can you manage the hydrant in this glass of water? And obviously can't, and it's no different than using profit as a key indicator in our lives of saying, are we being successful or not? It doesn't make sense. So we take this message to the world through a Savory network of hubs. We've got currently 40 hubs around the globe. Precious works with the Africa Center for Holistic Management very often. That's one of our hubs in Zimbabwe. We're working towards 100 around the globe to impact 1 billion hectares of land by 2025. That's what we think is a tipping point to really start to see the needle going the other direction and reaching critical mass. And we are here in Paris launching the Soil for Climate, Soil Manifesto. And this is a multi-organization partnership where we are trying to get the message to world leaders that soil is part of the solution. So you guys are all here on the same mission. Please go to our website and sign that. I've also got an iPad with me. You can sign it there. If you want your organization listed on the site, we would love for that as well. And that's a little bit of a snapshot from the Soil Manifesto. Just really try to put the focus back on soil. So I hope I've briefly in that time given you a different view of my friends here and helped you remember that quality of life is what we're all here for. And if we don't have that, I think that we're lost in all the rest of this as well. So thank you.